I consider my husband's relationship to his family to be excessively attached. I feel displaced. I have feelings of resentment and non-acceptance towards them and non-acceptance towards myself. I consider my husband's relationship to his family to be excessively attached. Now, this may be a subjective thing on your part, or it may be that if other people observed your husband's behavior, perhaps they would find the same thing, or perhaps they would say, no, I don't find it excessively attached. So we don't know to what extent your perception is subjective. But whatever it is, whether it's subjectively true or objectively true also, it is based on certain judgments in your mind about his behavior. And you feel displaced, again, it's based on certain thoughts in your head, certain interpretations, resentment and non-acceptance towards them. If you look closely what resentment and non-acceptance means, you will most likely find there are certain thoughts of non-acceptance and resentment about them. So there are thoughts about your husband's behavior, there are thoughts about them, there are thoughts about yourself. And the problem is not in the situation, because if you did not add those judgments to the situation, there would be no problem. But by adding those judgments to the situation and then mixing them up in a bowl, then you can no longer tell the difference between the situation and your judgments of the situation. They've merged into one. If you can disentangle the situation from your judgments about the situation, you will suddenly find that the situation is simple, uncomplicated, and contains no problem. If you subtract, so to speak, your judgments. So you've been mixed this up, now separate the two and see what's my judgment and what's the actual situation. That applies to whatever, any problem of that kind, anywhere, when you feel resentments and so on arising. Here's the situation, and here are my judgments. Now the situation is as it is, they remain his parents, and it's possible that your husband may not be capable of changing his behavior, or may be unwilling, or he may consider it totally normal, and the parents will remain his parents until they die, so there's nothing you can do about that. Does your well-being or your state of mind depend on how your husband relates to his parents? Does your happiness or unhappiness depend on his degree of involvement with his parents? Now, there are certain thoughts in your head that tell you, yes, I cannot be happy because he is too attached to them. He talks to them too often, he goes to them too often, he pays too much attention to them and not enough attention to me. Those are all thoughts arising in your head that you believe in. But if you look closely, it's actually not true that your happiness or unhappiness depends on the way in which your husband relates to his parents. Those are things that have arisen in your mind because of excessive attachment on your part to your thoughts. And not being able to see that these are simply thoughts, interpretations, you can call them, or you can call them viewpoints. That's one way of looking at it. That's what's a viewpoint. Somebody else who looks at the same situation might interpret it very differently and say, oh, isn't it nice how loving and close he is to his parents? It's a wonderful example for us all. Oh, there you have another viewpoint. So you can see that whatever thought arises is an interpretation, is a judgment, is a viewpoint, not the truth. And when you see that, you can see that you are free not to identify with that judgment or viewpoint as it arises. So in other words, you no longer completely believe in whatever your mind is telling you about this. So this means you're beginning to disentangle the situation from your judgments and your judgments. So, and suddenly you see, well, here's what he does, and here's what I think about it. And you're beginning to have some space, so you are not, your thoughts may still arise, but there's an awareness there that realizes that these are thoughts arising in your mind, and here's that which you, for a long time, have added to the situation and mixed them up. Enormous freedom comes in when you can see that situations, in many cases, in most cases, are quite neutral and unproblematic, but they become problematic if you believe in every thought that arises in your mind about it. And so there's a possibility of freedom for you and again here we come to the word allow, to allow him to be the way he is and to do what he does, and then you may find you're suddenly free. He still does the same thing, and you suddenly realize it was an erroneous assumption on the part of you, on your mind, to believe that your happiness or unhappiness depends on the degree of attachment of your husband to his parents. Or that he's taking away something from you that may be an old pattern in you. He's not giving me enough attention. He's giving more attention to his mother than to me. Well, perhaps he is. Do you need his attention for your happiness? Or is there a source of happiness and aliveness inside you? I'm not going into that now because that's part of the entire teaching that you are drawn to for some reason. So this is something for you to explore and see how things change when you let go of old judgments.